thank you in advance for all that hard work you're going to be doing for them. And it is also a distinct privilege for me to introduce our great Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax. We had a great time crisscrossing the state last year campaigning together. He has hit the ground running. He's convened a really important conversation on evictions in Virginia. He's the head of the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association, which is important because it kind of reminds us we got to work hard in every single election, top to bottom, top of the ticket, all the way down to the bottom. Please welcome Justin Fairfax.
Thank you all. Let's give it up for our great Attorney General, Mark Herring. He's doing incredible work for us all around the Commonwealth of Virginia. This is an amazing gathering. I've been proud to be here with you every single year. It gets bigger and bigger and better, and the stakes get higher. But it always is a great sign when you see Congressman Bobby Scott, because that means we're going to win some races here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I want to thank Congressman for his leadership and for all he's done. We're going to send Elaine Luria to join him. Please get out for Elaine in a second. And we have the two best United States Senators in America, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine. Let's give them a round of applause. And let's get out and vote for Tim and send him back with record numbers. And speaking of record numbers, last year we stood before you and asked you for your support, for your vote, for your hard work, for you to reach out to your neighbors, to knock on doors, to write checks. And in turn, we said we would deliver. Well, you all delivered for us. And we won that election last year statewide with the most votes in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia, because you all came out and voted and made your voices heard. And this year, we have another incredible opportunity. And as the Attorney General mentioned, we in this General Assembly session created change with our great leaders in the House of Delegates who got Medicaid expansion put in the budget before anyone else. Mamie Locke, who is the chair of our Senate caucus, then guided us here to victory. And because you all believed in us and you allowed me to stand up on that dais as your Lieutenant Governor, we had a 20-20 tie vote on 4 amendments around Medicaid expansion. And guess what? The Lieutenant Governor can break ties. I broke all 4 of them. And now 400,000 people will have health insurance in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Elections matter, and elections have consequences. And so I am so proud of each and every one of you. We have an incredible leadership team, and I get a distinct privilege of introducing someone. I want to share a quick story from inauguration that I think shows what's possible in the Commonwealth of Virginia and in this country when we adhere to our highest values, when we give people hope and opportunity in education. As many of you know, the week of our inauguration, it was discovered in the Fairfax County Courthouse, a document that had freed my great-great-great-grandfather, Simon Fairfax, from slavery in Virginia on June the 5th, 1798, 220 years ago. And 220 years later, because people believe in hope and opportunity and giving people a shot, his great-great-great-grandson was being sworn in as a number 2 in command of the same state where he had been enslaved. We know what possible looks like. We know what hope looks like. We know what change and opportunity look like. And that's what we believe as Democrats, and it's who we are. And so that's why I'm so proud of the person that we have leading our Commonwealth into the future. You all know him. He really needs no introduction. He has fought for us for many years. He led us so ably in this last General Assembly session and achieved historic gains around our budget. And now Virginia is poised to lead this country into a brighter future. And it's all because you got behind an incredible man who is our dear friend and our governor, Dr. Ralph Northam.
Good afternoon, Democrats. It is good to be back with you, believe it or not, to the 42nd picnic of Congressman Bobby Scott. That is certainly commendable, Bobby. You started at what age? But thank you all so much for being here. It's just something that nobody wants to miss. So it's good seeing so many friendly faces. And as I say, no offense to my mayor from Richmond, but it's good to be back in 757 every now and then. You know, these elections do have tremendous consequences. And this man that just introduced me, Justin Fairfax, as he said, and I am so proud that he's our lieutenant governor, and he is second in command. And what I can't understand, he calls my wife every morning to ask her how I'm feeling. And so I don't know what that's all about. It's obviously just good intentions, but you know, we we say that these elections have consequences, and he is doing just a wonderful job as our Lieutenant Governor, and Mark Herring as our Attorney General. I can't tell you how important it is to have someone of the same party backing me up in Richmond. And just a week or so ago, as you all know, they wanted our teachers in Lee County, which is the westernmost county in Virginia. They wanted our teachers to be able to carry weapons. Well, teachers need to be educators, not law enforcement people. So, Mark Herring, thank you for your decision there. It is always good to see so many elected officials, and you know, I remind people all the time that this is not the easiest time to be an elected official, but it is certainly the most important time, and you all are blessed in this area to have such great representatives. And if nothing else, we have to keep in check what is going on Pennsylvania Avenue. It is a culture of corruption, and we've got to stop it right now. So we as Democrats, we are under a large tent. We believe in jobs for everybody in Virginia. It doesn't matter who you are or where you are in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We believe in raising the minimum wage. Nobody can live off of $7.25 an hour. We believe that your children should have access to a world-class education. We believe that all of you should have access to affordable and quality health care. That all of you should be able to live in environments where the air and water are clean, in communities that are safe, where there are not guns on every street corner. And finally, just look around at this audience. We live in a very diverse society. It's becoming more diverse every day. That's what makes this country and this great Commonwealth who we are. And we need to continue to be inclusive. We will welcome people to the Commonwealth of Virginia. Our lights are on. Our doors are open. So we have an election on November the 6th. We have great candidates running. You're going to hear from some of them, but tell your friends, your neighbors, get out there and vote on November the 6th. These elections have consequences. So thank you all again. It is a great privilege to be your 73rd governor. And now I want to show you or tell you about one of my friends, introduce. The heat's gotten to my head. You know, I was nervous after Justin was talking. But I want to introduce to you someone who needs no introduction. He is our senior U.S. Senator. He was the 69th Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. His Excellency, Senator Mark Warner. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. Give it up for Ralph Northam. He is one excellent excellency. Let me also say, Bobby, I think about all the years that we were here. There were some lean years when there were so few Democratic elected officials that we could barely fit right around this stage. But what you have created, what we have created, we are seeing the face of Virginia in front of us right here. We all should be proud of that. I also don't understand how you guys are all so crisp and I seem to be a little bit moist. I might be a little bit moist because I've got a rather interesting job these days. Do you remember when summertime was the time you kind of kick back, you relax? If you were in Congress, you might even get something called the August recess. If you would just take, and I'm going to do this very quickly, but if you would just think all the way back to Memorial Day. What has happened since Memorial Day to Labor Day this year? Let me go down the list. Early in June, this White House rolls back the emissions on automobiles and takes America out of the Paris Accord. After that, the administration started to say, well, maybe, yes, they could use federal funds to actually arm teachers rather than educate students. After that, we came to a day that was, I think, will live in infamy, where a United States president kowtowed, and Lord knows whatever else, to a Russian leader who has attacked our nation. And if that was not enough, shortly after that, and we're still just in the middle of summer, this administration, for the first time ever, said if they don't like what a former intelligence committee individual would say, if that individual exercised his or her First Amendment rights, this White House laid out an enemies list of a whole group of people whose security clearances they would take away. If that wasn't enough as well, just in this last week, and you know there was nothing in terms of timing on this White House decides arbitrarily that the rather measly 1.9% raise that federal workers ought to have, that suddenly we can't afford it. This is the same crowd who basically did a $2 trillion tax cut with borrowed money, now says we can't pay our federal workers 1.9% raise. And then if there would be anything else, our country lost a great patriot, a great American, someone that I'm sure Tim will speak to it as well. We didn't always agree, but the one thing about John McCain, you knew that he believed in loyalty, he believed in service, he acknowledged that at times he made mistakes and was wrong, and to the whole country and to the world, there was no more stark contrast of the values that John McCain represented versus the values that come out of this White House. I have never seen as petty a behavior as what came out of the White House in the immediate aftermath of the passing of John McCain. So I got a right to be moist. That doesn't even count the 32 indictments that have been passed on by the Mueller investigation. That doesn't count the fact that the president, chairman, has been convicted of a crime. That doesn't count the fact that the president's personal lawyer has pled guilty. And I don't know what Mueller knows or doesn't know, but I think there'll be more to come. And one of the things we need to make sure is that we allow this investigation to finish. We are a nation of laws, and no one is above the law, including Donald Trump. The best way we can make that happen is elect folks like Elaine. The path to House majority comes through Virginia with a number of great women candidates. Let's make that happen on Tuesday, November 6th. Now, the next guy, I've known for 39 years. We met each other at law school, not in the library. And as we said occasionally for a number of years, when I was governor, he was lieutenant governor, we actually saw more of each other than we saw of our wives. But I can't think of anyone that I'm prouder to call a friend, prouder to call a colleague, someone who, no matter what the challenge is, if the fight is right, he's there. Fighting for education, fighting for health care, being willing to take on his own party and our president when he said, you know what, Congress ought to actually declare war, not a president arbitrarily. Issue after issue after issue, Tim Kaine is a leader. Now, I would hate to end up having to give up what was the biggest margin ever a senator won by in Virginia, which I won in 2008 by 34 points. But I care so much about Tim Kaine that I am willing to have Tim Kaine take advantage of this certain Minnesotan who seems to have some strange views about history. But if we do our part, we will re-elect Tim Kaine with the greatest margin in the history of the Commonwealth. My friend, our junior senator, Tim Kaine.
How about the way he just reminded you he won by 34 points in 2008? It is so good to be here. And you know, can I have Elaine and Bobby come stand with me just right here? I am joined by a lot of great friends, and I'm joined by my wife, which makes this a great day. And to have Mark, Justin, Mark, and our governor here. But I want to say, Bobby, you and I did a bunch of events Friday, and Bobby was using this line. It was kind of a joke, but it's really true. There's only two ways to run. Run unopposed or run scared. He's running unopposed. Elaine and I are running scared. But I want to switch it and say there's only two ways to run for office. Run by yourself or run as a team. We are running in 2018 as a team. Bobby Scott for the third, Elaine Luria for the second, and me for the United States Senate. And we are doing that all over the Commonwealth with the 11 Democrats who are running for the House, 4 wonderful incumbents, Bobby and Donald McCeachin and Don Beyer and Jerry Connolly, and then 7 dynamic challengers like Elaine. Of the 7, 6 are women. Of the 7, 5 are first-time candidates. Tremendously talented individuals. But I point this out because, Bobby, I haven't had a chance to tell you this yet. We did a big event, Buena Vista Labor Day Parade, which is a big kickoff event in Buena Vista up in Rockbridge County earlier today. And Jennifer Lewis is the Democrat running for Congress there. And Jennifer and I and our volunteers all marched together. The Republican running for Congress, Ben Klein, was about 3 blocks away from the Republican running for Senate, Corey Stewart. We are running as a team. They are running as individuals. That gives us a huge advantage if we press the advantage to win between now and November 6th. Just 3 quick things. Politics, labor, patriotism. Politics. This is kind of the kickoff weekend. You know, it's the kickoff of the home stretch. And even when we were at Buena Vista and the Democrats and Republicans in the audience were going back and forth, I reminded people how lucky we are to live in a place where you have events like this, you have parades, you have debates, you have tough tussles and struggles. But as President Obama said so eloquently at John McCain's funeral, Ann and I were there, we are all on the same team. We're not enemies. We have some differences of opinion, but we have to act like we're on the same team. And it's so good to live in a country where we can have events like this. I was a missionary in a country that was a military dictatorship where people couldn't vote for anybody. And then I realized how lucky we have it. But what we have to do, because we're lucky and blessed, is take it seriously. We have to participate, vote, organize, canvass, call. We got to persuade others to do it. If we don't, we're not taking that responsibility seriously. So thank you for your engagement. This energy tells me our November is going to be a good one. Let's just keep pressing. Second, labor. This is Labor Day weekend. We are here to honor working people. Raise your hand if you're connected to organized labor in this audience. Give these great workers a round of applause. We've got teachers, we've got steel workers, we've got elevator operators, we've got UFCW, we've got a lot of people here. The Democratic Party stands with working people. We stand with working people. We're working to raise a minimum wage so that if you work full-time with a child, you won't be below the poverty level. Do you know that 2/3 of folks who work full-time for minimum wage are women? We are the ones that are pushing to increase the minimum wage, while the other side is pushing to take away tiny little pay increases, cost of living increases to 170,000 Virginians who work in the federal government. That is pretty clear. We are the ones that want to do tax reform that's fair to regular, everyday working people, but they are the ones that did the tax bill that was a massive, deep, permanent tax cut for corporations, but tiny, temporary, expiring tax cuts for people, and $2 trillion of debt on top of it. They've got their priorities wrong. We support working people, and we honor them both in our words, but more especially, we work together and honor them with our actions. And the last thing I want to say is about patriotism. Mark alluded to our friend John McCain. McCain was very temperamental, very mercurial, a guy that you could disagree with a lot. I had been in the Senate 2 months on the Armed Services Committee, and unbeknownst to me, I walked into a massive fight with John McCain about shipbuilding in Newport News. He started to browbeat witnesses about cost overruns, and I wasn't going to let that happen, so when it was my turn, I started to prove that these witnesses, if they got to answer the full question instead of being browbeaten, were going to come to the defense of our shipyard workers, and John McCain was wrong. Then he started interrupting me, and by the time it was over, I thought, oh no, I've only been in the Senate 2 months, and now I've alienated the guy who's going to be the chair of the Armed Services Committee. I walked over him not to apologize, but just to see how much bridge building I had to do. And McCain just was like, welcome to the Senate, son. Welcome to the Senate. McCain loved to fight. He loved a person who would put up a good fight. You could disagree with him all day long, but he knew you were on the same team. There would be days we'd be fighting about one thing and writing the op-eds together on something else. I asked him once, hey, President Trump's cutting the diplomacy budget. Will you write an op-ed with me? He said, absolutely. So I wrote it. I submitted under both of our names. It got published online in the middle of an armed services committee. It pops up and it's President Trump, don't cut diplomacy by John McCain and Tim Kaine. And I went over to McCain and I said, is this what I get when I write the editorial? And you signed it, and he said, Tim, man, you only lost for vice president. I lost for president of the United States. But nothing told you who John McCain was more than his courageous vote in July of 2017. I mean, folks, this thing was, do you remember when Justin Fairfax told you about breaking ties to expand health insurance? This thing was wired in the Senate. It was wired. They were going to take away the Affordable Care Act. President Trump said on the day one he was going to do it. And then he later said, who knew healthcare could be so complicated? And it wasn't a one-day thing, but they worked for 6 months to do it. And now it's finally positioned on the floor. And it's a tie. We've got two Republicans, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, voting for us. But everybody thinks McCain's going the other way because he's been voting the other way. And so they bring the vice president in to break the tie. They don't do that in the Senate unless there is a tie to be broken. This was a vice president who was going to, with excitement, break a tie to take health insurance away from 20 million Americans. But then John McCain walked in there like that scene in Gladiator, and he put his thumb down and saved health insurance. That's a great American in my book. And I will tell you that in 2018, we are the party of the patriotic value expressed at the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, those last two words, for all. Francis Bellamy didn't have to put those words at the end. It would have been fine to have a nation dedicated to liberty and justice, period. But he was smart enough in the 1890s to add those two words at the end. And we have a comparison in 2018 between a party that was willing to do fighting and heavy lifting year after year after year to expand Medicaid in Virginia, even for Republicans who don't vote for us. Many of whom won't vote for us. Many of whom will never say thank you to the President Obama who did the Affordable Care Act and to the Democrats who expanded Medicaid. But we are willing to help them anyway because we're for all people. But on the other side, a President Trump and a GOP trying to take health insurance away from millions and millions of their own voters. If you have anybody that asks you between the difference between Democrats and Republicans in 2018, you just tell them that Democrats are for all, and we prove it every day. And the other guys, look, the message from on top now is not for all. It's for a few. It's for some. Mostly it's just for him. But we are still a for all nation. We say that in the pledge every day. And what's on the ballot in November is not Elaine versus Scott. It's not Bobby versus Asterisk. It's not Tim Kaine versus Corey. What's on the ballot in November is us sending a message that we are still a for all nation. We're still a Virginia for lovers, not haters. We still believe in the equality principle that Jefferson put out there for us to follow. We're a commonwealth, a community. That's what's on the ballot. That's the message we need to send. Happy Labor Day to everybody. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Tim mentioned elections have consequences, and Senator McCain cast the ultimate vote that killed the bill. Well, he passed. And he's going to be replaced by a Republican that's going to come in and vote the other way.
Yeah.
And can they call the bill back up to kill it? Elections have consequences. After that vote, between now and that vote, there was an election in Alabama. Jeff Sessions' temporary appointment was voting with the Republicans, but something happened when they had the election to elect the person to fill the unexpired term, and Democrat Doug Jones, because Democrats came out in record numbers, defeated Roy Moore, and he will be casting that vote in favor of health care, and those two votes we got are still good. Elections have consequences. And we need to make sure that we let people know those elections have consequences. And I'm going to ask my future colleague to come up and say a few words. When you vote for Kaine, also vote for Kaine.
Elaine Luria, and I'm your Democratic nominee in the 2nd Congressional District. I spent 20 years in the Navy, and I learned some really important lessons. And being a Naval Academy graduate, Senator John McCain was always someone who I looked up to. And one of those lessons I learned was integrity is doing the right thing when no one is looking. All right. Yep. So, a lot of times people ask me, why are you running? And it's pretty simple. I'm running because we are better than this. Yes. We are better than watching infants be ripped from their mother's breast at the border. And we are better than sending our children to school with the fear of senseless gun violence. And we are better than the racism and the bigotry and the anti-Semitism that we saw on the streets of Charlottesville last year. And we can place a check on all of this right here in Virginia's 2nd Congressional District, because we need this seat to flip the entire House of Representatives. So like we've said, it's easy to remember when you're talking to folks about November 6th. What do you say? Kaine and Elaine. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, did any elected officials show up after we recognized the elected officials? Dawn Hester, the former delegate and now treasurer of the city of Norfolk. Somebody pointing at somebody?
The journalist.
Okay, that's it. And we also have Jim Livingston, who's the Virginia State President of the VEA. Do we have other statewide officials? Any elected officials, union officials statewide? Well, we want to thank you all for coming. Am I missing somebody? You represent 757. Everybody represent. How many people represent 757? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, and we'll see you next year. But between now and then, we'll see you at the polls.